Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya Yato Anvayaditaratascha Artheshu Abhigyaswarat Tene Brahmahridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayah Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Swena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukadamrita Drava Sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. We now enter the 80th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a very special chapter on the story of Krishna's dear friend Sudama. So Parikshit asks a question, having heard the pilgrimage of Balaram. Now Parikshit again wants to know more about Krishna's activities. So he says, O great sage Shuka, please tell me some other activities and leelas of Krishna. Krishna is none other than the supreme spirit of all with infinite powers, and therefore he has infinite leelas, infinite sports. I would like to hear more of his glorious sports. He says, Bhagavan yani cha anyani mukundasya mahatmanaha viryani ananta viryasya shrotumichamahe prabhu. Mukunda, the Lord who bestows liberation, Mahatmanaha, who is the supreme spirit of all, Ananta Viryaha, who is of infinite prowess. I want to hear more of his pastimes, he says. And then he further says that those who live on earth and run after various worldly enjoyments which are like a mirage get only suffering, and their heart is pierced with sorrow every once in a while because their desires are frustrated. But the one who has true taste, he listens to the excellent stories of Bhagavan, and after that, he is only satisfied in listening to that and not engaging in chasing worldly pleasures. Further, Parikshit adds, he says, that speech alone is worthy, which is singing the praises of the Lord. Those hands alone are worthy, which offer service to him. And that mind is alone worthy, which contemplates on him. And those ears are alone worthy, which hear of his leelas. It's a beautiful verse. He says, Savag yaya tasya gunan granite karaucha tat karma karo manascha smared vasantam stirajangameshu shrunoti tat punyakata sakarnaha. Only that's a ear that listens to the holy stories of the Lord, and so on with the mind which only contemplates on him, and speech which glorifies him. Further, he says, only that head which bows to all beings, seeing God in them, is truly a worthy head, and only that eye is worthy to be called an eye which sees God in everything. It's a beautiful expression. He says, Yat pashyati tadhi chakshuhu. Only that is an eye which sees God in everything. And only those limbs are to be called God, proper limbs, which are used to go to sacred places and which are constantly sprinkled with waters that wash the feet of the devotees of the Lord. So, in other words, every sense, both the karmendriyas and jnanendriyas, that is, sight, smell, taste, sound, and touch, as well as thought, word, and deed, all of them can be dovetailed towards activities connected to the Supreme Being, and only then they are worthy, is what Parikshit says. And thereby he encourages Shuka Brahma Rishi to share something very special beyond all the various things he has already shared. It's 80 chapters now in the 10th Skandha. We began the 10th Skandha with the appearance of Krishna, and we have seen so many wonderful pastimes. And yet, Parikshit is able to draw out something even more special, because listening to Parikshit, Shuka Brahma Rishi goes into a complete silence, and then he with his mind completely abiding in the Lord, he starts speaking. It says, Vishnuratena samprishto Bhagavan Badarayanihi Vasudeve Bhagavati Nimagna Hridayo Abravit. Nimagna Hridayo means his heart was completely merged in the Lord, and with that he started speaking, and he narrated the most excellent story of a special friend of Krishna. We'll see now. He says there was a certain Brahmana who was a great friend of Krishna. He possessed true knowledge of the Supreme Spirit. He was free of any attachment. His mind was ever composed and his senses were fully under control. He says, Krishnasya asit saka kaschid brahmano brahmavettamaha virakta indriyartheshu prashantatma jitendriya. So, virakta indriyartheshu means completely detached from sense gratification. Prashantatma with a serene mind. Jitendriya with all the senses under regulation. Brahmavittamaha, one who truly knows the Supreme Spirit. This is the friend, Krishnasya asit sakha. This is the friend of Krishna and his name is Sudama. And even though he was a householder, it is said that he remained contented with whatever he got without any effort. And he was always, because of that, clad in very tattered clothes. He didn't even have enough money to clothe himself properly, nor his wife. And therefore, because his dress was always very tattered, he was called Kuchela. Chela means the clothing. Ku is always a prefix that denotes something that's not proper. So he was not properly clothed even. Therefore, he is called Kuchela. So his name is Sudama, but he was referred to as Kuchela because he was always not properly even clothed due to having no money and having extreme poverty. It says Yadrichyo upapannena vartamano grihashrami tasya bharya kuchelasya kshut kshamacha tathavidha. So he was so much in poverty that he hardly could eat a proper meal, and both he and his wife and the children were all very afflicted in poverty. And therefore, one day, this poor wife, whose body was very emaciated and whose face was withering, she came to her husband. She is also a very pious woman. And so she comes to her husband and she speaks to him gently and says, O adorable husband, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, the spouse of the goddess of wealth, he is your friend. And he is like a wish shielding tree to all the devotees. He is a refuge for all, and he is a great protector of Brahmanas. She says, Nanu Brahman Bhagavataha Sakha Shakshat Shriyaf Patihi Brahmanyascha Sharanyascha Bhagavan Sattvatarshavaha. So, what she wants to do is, she wants to tell this friend Sudama to go to his friend Krishna and ask for some benediction so that they can be out of this extreme poverty, because they were in such poverty that they could not even feed their children, they could not clothe properly, as already said, and so they were living in such poverty. And yet everybody knew that his dear friend is Krishna, and therefore she approached him only to remind him that Krishna being your friend, he would not like it that you are living in this way. It is not about us asking him, it is about him. And she anticipates any objection her husband might have, and therefore she addresses all of that very intelligently in this verse. She says first that he is a protector of all his devotees. And second, he is especially one who takes care of Brahmanas, those who are truly into Vedic wisdom and who are not in any way acquisitive and who are truly living a surrendered life, for them he is a protector. And he is the consort of Lakshmi, the mother of wealth herself. And therefore, she says that being the one who protects all his devotees, especially the Brahmanas, and being the consort of opulence herself, it is only proper that we approach him. And therefore, she says, please approach him, who is the resort of the righteous. When he comes to know that you are a householder and you are suffering from such poverty, he will bestow what is necessary. She says, Tam upaihi mahabhaga sadhunam cha parayanam dasyati dravinam bhuri sidate te kutumbine. When he realizes that you are a householder who is in such poverty, he being of such compassion will automatically do what is necessary. He is now living in Dwaraka, and he is the protector of all the Yadavas and so on. And he is known to be so generous that he would give his own heart to those who contemplate on him. And that is why he is called the supreme teacher of the whole world. And therefore, for him to bestow some paltry wealth is nothing, and it's not even desirable. Yet we just have to sustain our life, keep the body and soul together. So it's only appropriate that you approach your friend Krishna. When she very wisely and gently asks her husband in this way, the Brahmana contemplates, Sudama contemplates, and he says to himself, while I am not keen on asking for any money from Krishna, he is my dear friend, and any opportunity to see him would be always welcome. If I can have an opportunity to get his darshan, that is a supreme gain in and of itself. And therefore, he decided to himself, I'll go, but I'll ask nothing. I'll just see him and come. And with this intent, he asks his wife now, oh dear, is there anything in the house to be taken as a gift? Because it is the tradition always to go to anyone's house with a gift. And here we see the culture of Sudama, that even though they have nothing, he still wants to take a present. And the wife, of course, she has got nothing, so she immediately goes out and she goes to the houses of a few neighbors, begs them, and secures 4 handfuls of beaten rice. That's all she could get, and that too through begging. And then she takes a rag. They don't even have a proper way to give the rice. So one of the rag, she has a torn piece of cloth. She takes that, and then in that she puts this parched rice and ties it up together and then gives it as a present for Krishna. So that's the present, but it is done with all their heart and love, even though it is only parched rice tied together in a torn piece of cloth. So with this, Kuchela or Sudama sets about on his journey to Dwaraka carrying this present, and all the while thinking only about Krishna and how it will be wonderful to finally see Krishna after all these years. Says Krishna Sandarshanam Mahyam Katam Syad iti Chintayan. How will I see him? How will he be? Whether he'll recognize me? Will I be able to even enter his proximity, because he is this great king of Dwaraka and I am just this completely destitute person? So he was having all these thoughts when with this he was walking towards Dwaraka. And finally he reaches Dwaraka. And after he reaches Dwaraka, he finds that there are 3 protective walls, one after another. He crosses all of them. He sees many mansions in the main city of Dwaraka, which belong to the various chiefs, and he passes all of them. They are all very pious people. He sees all kinds of auspicious signs in Dwaraka. And finally, he reaches the innermost ring of the city, Where is the huge palace and all the mansions in which Krishna and all his consorts reside? As we have seen, there are many consorts and each of them have their own mansion. And among them is the most decorated and most attractive mansion, which is the one in which Rukmini is and Krishna is with her. So, seeing this from a distance, this Sudama, he walks towards that mansion which is drawing his eye, and he enters that. And as soon as he enters that, somehow Krishna is aware that this friend of his is coming. So he rises from the seat and he instantly runs towards the entrance. So, far from Sudama wondering whether Krishna will recognize him, even before he saw him, he felt his friend's arrival. He rises up from the bed in which he was sitting. He was sitting in the bed with Rukmini massaging his feet. And he rises up from there. Krishna rises up, gets up, goes out to the entrance, and instantly receives Sudama. And he is so extremely delighted, touches him, embraces him, hugs him tightly, with tears of joy flowing from the eyes of Krishna. And Sudama cannot even believe it that he was not only seeing Krishna, but he was completely in the embrace of Krishna. It says here, Viveshaikatam Srimad Brahmanandam Gatoyata. So he felt like he was in true Brahmananda, that is the supreme bliss of the highest kind. He was engulfed in such bliss. And Krishna, who is the purifier of the whole world, took Sudama by his hands, took him with so much love, and made him sit on his own bed. And Krishna sat down, brought all kinds of articles necessary to worship Sudama, literally, because he is a wise Brahmana. So he brought water with which Sudama's feet was washed, and then he sprinkled that water on his head and sprinkled it on Rukmini as well. And then he got perfumes and pastes and so on and applied it on Sudama, massaged his feet. And then he offered him great opulent food. And then after that, mouth fresheners like cloves and so on. And after all of this, Krishna addressed Sudama with very sweet words as well. And not only all this was going on, Rukmini herself also took a beautiful fan made of feathers, and she was standing by the side waving the fan for this ill-clad Brahmana. It says, Kuchelam Malinam Kshamam Dvijam Damani Santatam Devi Paryacharad Sakshad Chamara Vajanena Vai. The one who is ill-clad, improperly even dressed, he doesn't even have a proper clothing, and hence is called Kuchela. He is sitting in the palace in the bed of Krishna, with Krishna massaging his feet, serving him food, and Rukmini, the consort of Krishna, who is none other than Sri or Lakshmi, waving a fan. And seeing this, all the maid servants and the other women in the palace are all astonished. They are talking to each other, what is this? We see this naked, destitute, and who looks like a lowly beggar, and he is sitting in the bed, and the Lord of the three worlds, Krishna, is receiving him with such honor. And not only that, he is embracing him, he is putting him in his bed, and he is treating him like his own elder brother Balaram. So, in this way, they are all wondering about this unbelievable scene of this Sudama being honored in such unparalleled way by Krishna and Rukmini. Meanwhile, Krishna speaks to Sudama in such sweet words. He says, "Oh, my friend, what happened to you after you returned from our Guru's house? Because so the way the friendship came between Krishna and Sudama is due to studying together at the residence of Sandipani. So as we can recall, after Kamsa was killed and Krishna established Ugrasena as the king of Mathura and all that, Krishna went to the residence, what's called as Gurukul of Sandipani, to study all the Vedas and all the various branches. And so at that time, the students that were there, one of them was this Sudama, and they became very good friends during that stay in the residence of the Guru in Gurukul. So Krishna is asking now, after we finished our study at the Guru's house, did you go and marry someone? I also know that even if you are living the life of a householder, you are completely free of any worldly desire because you have realized the truth and you have no desire for material pleasures. And those people who have shaken off all worldly desires and yet they perform their prescribed duties without any desire just to set an example for the world, they are very rare. It's a very important verse which Krishna himself is an example of. So he says, Kechit kurvanti karmani kame rahat chetasah tejantah prakriti devi yataham loka sangraham. Just to set a right example for the world, even though, and Krishna says this in the Gita as well, here also he says, even though there is nothing that needs to be accomplished for Krishna, just to set the right example, he is always working without any desire. And so he tells Sudama that I'm sure you are also similarly working without any desire. Do you remember the stay we had together in the house of our Guru? Because after all, it is the Guru who removes the darkness of ignorance in the form of mundane existence. And then Krishna says, there are three Gurus. So first is the Father who gives us the physical body. He is the first Guru. Then the second Guru is the one who initiates us into religious ceremonies and so on. For example, for Krishna it was Garga Rishi who initiated Krishna, gave him the name and the sacred thread ceremony and so on. But the third is the one who imparts true knowledge, knowledge of the self, the supreme wisdom, and he is the highest Guru. So Krishna says the teacher who imparts the knowledge of the self and helps one in realization of God, he is the ultimate and he is non-different from me. Krishna says that teacher is same as myself, that is, he is non-different from God. And therefore Krishna says they alone who carry out the Guru's teachings, they cross the ocean of mundane existence. And so, being the universal self of all, Krishna makes a beautiful declaration here that more than all the daily obligatory rituals, various sacrifices, rituals, and so on, more than any of that, more than studying scriptures, more than living the life of even an ascetic, more than living like a recluse, the thing that pleases me the most, Krishna says, is the one who offers services to his Guru. He says very beautifully, Sarva Bhutatma Guru Sushrushaya Yatha Tushyeyam Sarva Bhutatma Guru Sushrushaya Yatha. I get satisfied by the one who serves his Guru completely, more than the one who even worships me, the one who does all kinds of rituals in worshipping me or studying scriptures or engaging in meditation. More than any of that, the one who serves his Guru with all his heart, he satisfies me. Then Krishna goes on to relate a particular incident which relates how Krishna and Sudama both serve the Guru in this way. So Krishna tells Sudama, do you remember the incident where one day when we were in the house of our Guru, the Guru's wife asked us to bring fuel from the forest. We entered a thick forest, but unseasonal rain came and therefore we waited for the rain to abate. But meanwhile, the sunset happened and it became suddenly dark, and the rain was so much that there was water all around us. We couldn't see the high or low of the ground. We were enveloped in darkness as well as in waters, and there was violent blasts of wind and showers in all directions, and we didn't know which way to even go, and therefore we were stranded there till sunrise. And then just on the break of dawn, our Guru Sandipani came looking for us out of his compassion, and he was so moved by us. He said, "My dear boys, you've been put to great hardship because of me. You have put your own self at great peril just to follow the instructions of getting fuel for fire for my house. A good disciple is one who offers his very heart to the Guru, and that is precisely what you have done. And because you have both done so, all your desires will be fulfilled, and all that you have learned from me will always remain fresh in you." So, this is the greatest blessing that a guru can give, because a guru can impart wisdom to the student, but to not ever leave that wisdom but have that wisdom fresh in the heart is the greatest benediction a guru can give. And that's what Sandipani gives both Krishna and Sudama. And Krishna recounts that incident of, do you remember the Sudama, where we were both struck, or we were caught in the forest, and we were spending the whole night there. And the next morning, Sandipani himself came, the Guru came and gave us this wonderful benediction. And how many more incidents happened like this in the Guru's house? And we both had such a great time. It is, after all, by Guru's grace that everybody gets true peace, and we were also blessed with such a great Guru. He says, Guror anugrahenaiva puman purna prashantaye. So Krishna completes his talk to Sudama by first recounting all of these incidents and then saying, after all, we are connected not just as any two friends, but as two Guru brothers. We went to the same Guru, and we are both fortunate to have learned from the same Guru. So all of this shows the great humility of how Krishna is setting an example, because Krishna doesn't have to learn anything from Sandipani in reality, but he set the right example by going to Sandipani's Gurukul, being a student. And as we can see, while he was a student, he did not display his Ishwaratvam, that is his divinity, because he need not be stuck in the forest for whole night. The one who held Govardhan with his little finger, he need not be stuck in the forest for whole night because of some rain. And yet he behaved like a proper student so that the Guru can come and save them, even at the physical level. And thereby the Guru's benediction was fully upon him, and thereby he set the right example for everyone. So, listening to all this, Sudama is of course very moved, and he addresses very beautifully. He says, O God of gods, O Guru of the whole world, what else is there to be achieved by me? Because I have already been fortunate to have been with this great Guru, with you. It says, Kim asmabir nivritam devadeva jagadguru bhavata satyakamena yesham vaso gurav abhut. So I was not only with this great Guru, but you were my friend, you were my Guru brother, you are Deva Deva Jagat Guru yourself, and I was with you. And moreover, all the Vedas that we learned, all the knowledge we learned from the Guru's place, they all in fact constitute your very essence. And therefore, you simply came to the Guru's house only to imitate the ways of men as a sport, as setting an example. In reality, we know that you had nothing to learn, but you came there and bestowed your grace on me by being my friend. and bestowed your grace on all the students there by being the one of the students among all of them, behaving exactly as a humble student, and thereby we were all blessed by you. He says, Shreyasam tasya gurushu vaso atyanta vidambanam. You just enacted this play and bestowed your grace on us. And with this chapter ends. In the next chapter, we'll see the beautiful completion of this episode of what happens to Sudama and how he is blessed by having come to Dwaraka and due to this meeting with Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.